Limbaugh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rush Limbaugh had a radio show for like 20 plus years, right? He would
Uh-huh.
always be talking to this person and no one knew who he was.
Oh, like from the in the background. He was in the background.
Yeah, yeah. But you would hear him. You would hear the person talking. Russ and him are having a conversation, but you would never see him. His name was Bo Schnurley, right? And when he started talking and they showed his face, he's been working with Russ Limbaugh for 20 plus years, a conservative that they've been calling a racist. And Bo Schnurley is black as hell. He said, he said he'll never forget the day that some kid was like, Mom, there's another conservative on the screen and he's black.
That was a shock to the world. A shock.
He said it. Yeah, he said, I shocked the world when I finally showed my face on Russ Limbaugh that I've been working with him all this time. And I think they did it on purpose to troll the entire media. I think they did
Probably.
it on purpose.
Yo, this is how they did. This is how I feel they treat us. Yo, what up, Felicia? You in the building? I see you. Yo, we just want
She
to say
moderates our YouTube, by the way.
we appreciate you. Yeah, for sure. This is crazy. We definitely appreciate you. Hold up. You know what I need right now? Quick mic check. Since
Oh,
you're
you sound
going, I'm
great.
good. Yeah, I'm good in the mic. Okay. Yo, this is how they treat you, Macho. I don't know if you know this, but this is how they treat you. When it comes to 34-year-old Macho from East Harlem, born and raised in the hood, raised by foster parents, crime all around him, poor schools, the lie detector determined, Macho's oppressed. Oh man, oh man. I am sorry to break it to you. We ran the test. We looked at the results.
What?
We went up and down the list. We thought it would be different. But Macho, what do you have to say to the people after the results came out that you are actually oppressed? Speak to the people a little bit. We found out you are oppressed. We know you shared you were in last week, but after the results came back, it's determined you are. What do you have to say? Please share. Look
I'm
at the
gonna have
camera.
to go for an appeal. I need a second opinion
Oh,
because this is absolutely
oh,
absurd.
oh.
I don't know. I can't live with these results. You know, I can't live like this. I can't.
Yeah. You know what? We're just gonna have to keep moving. We're gonna have to deal with the reality. I wish the results were different. I wish you knew more about your life than other people do. I really wish you did. But unfortunately, Macho, I have to remind you again. The lie detector determined that was a lie.
What's up, miscreants? I'm not savory. I need to change that line there. Let me change that before I give my my name here. This don't make no sense. Savory, how did we miss that? That's right. I'm Macho. Macho's in the building, and you see Savory is in the house. He'll be back momentarily. We are here. We are excited to wrap up this week of podcasting with you guys, of talking about white privilege. We already debunked that there is no white privilege. I hate to break it to you guys, but there is none. I'm sorry. I know. Some of you are upset. I know some of you are going to hate us and call us all kinds of names, but there's no white privilege. So we covered that. We covered what did we do on Monday? I forgot. What did we talk about on Monday?
What was Monday? We did White Privilege Wednesday, right?
Yeah, that was Wednesday.
Um, we spoke on the system as well. What was it? What was the angle we took?
Hmm.
Forgot the exact title we
I
took.
got it right now. But yeah, so we've had a really good run this year so far, and we've been going methodically, one point by point, talking about the inner city. We had a awesome first month of the year,
Mhm.
and
Facts.
you are steady progressing in TikTok. You are really killing it right now. I can't hold your coattails because you are killing it. You are
Nah,
far
you
ahead of
on
me.
it. Nah, 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 nah. Hold up.
This
Correct.
guy is the
Let me say
brains of
something.
the podcast. This guy
Nah,
is the
let me say
brains right
something.
here.
First of all, I need to say something because that's the most disrespectful thing I've ever heard. My man right here, you started the momentum and encouraged me to go on TikTok to keep it at. I was like more like, all right, let me do a few videos here. Then we started kicking off, and then that's when actually we started getting support for Drinks to the Nobody. So it's a team effort out here, bro. Let's just keep it up.
We have solid people who support us. On Monday, it was revisionist history and lies in the inner city. That's what our Monday episode was. Again, looking back in history and determining what history should be or ought to be, as if it's immovable or changeable.
Hmm.
It's just it doesn't change the history, and also white privilege. White privilege. What the hell is white privilege? We talked about that. Michael Eric Dyson had to get I mean, he's prime suspect number one in a Democrat District 9. My man is probably one of the kings that sits on the throne
Oh yeah,
on
for
the
sure.
Democrat District 9. And on that committee, keeps people in this area, Savory, where they can't get out of. They're in prison in
That's sad.
Democrat District 9. And that's pretty sad. But today, let's talk about the infamous welfare system. The conservative gangster, you know who I'm talking about here, right? The conservative gangster,
Who's the
Walter E.
conservative guy?
Williams.
Ooh,
Walter E.
I saw your
Williams
video on that. Yeah.
went really hard. I mean, HAM, hard as,
Mm.
right? About the welfare system. And primarily, it started with Milton Friedman. He started talking about it, and literally, Walter just took flight. And he really examined about these good intention policies and how it hurt minorities more than it helped them. And right now, currently, we have a lot of minorities that live in the projects in New York City, a
Hmm.
lot
A lot.
below the income poverty line.
Well, hold up. Let's note this for generations, right? We talk about
Since the
generational wealth.
70s. Since the
We talk
70s.
about generational wealth, right? This seems it started in the mid 60s to 70s, right? And it's looking like it's going to be a generational thing. We're going into the next generation now, and we're going to continue to see that because, again, there's no evidence that nothing's changing, which you're getting into now, but keep going. I just want to say that because it blows my
Tom
mind.
Sowell says that the welfare system did to black people that slavery and Jim Crow could not do combined. Literally have them go way and regress to a prehistoric place,
That's
right?
crazy.
You look at some of these low income areas, they're high crime, very violent, very sexual,
Hmm.
extremely sexual, and very addicted to drugs. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that no other demographic doesn't experience this, but it's so consolidated that you
Hmm.
can literally look at empirical data just by being there. If anybody in that's watching us spend 30 days there, and you will probably report what we're reporting
Hmm.
because we grew up in there, right? And not to be so anecdotal, anywhere around the country where you see low income, impoverished people, you start to see similar correlations, and
Hmm.
that's the thing that we start to share. Now, there's some distinctions here, though, Savory, that with some of these people who exist in society that are poor don't necessarily commit the kind of crimes the 13% of the population does. I want to examine really quick before we get into the welfare system in our real keep it 100 in our inner city talk. Why is it that there are more violent crimes with 13% of the population, despite the fact that they're not the only ones who are dealing with poverty?
Good question. Yeah. So why? So rephrase that.
Why is 13% of the population committing most of the crimes in this country despite the fact that they are not the only demographic that is impoverished?
Yeah.
You have other demographics that are probably more poor than
Hmm.
them.
And we also got case studies in sectors of these poverty stricken places in black and minority communities where crime is not super high, but poverty is still there, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, we got to wrestle with the question, which again, and I think you're hitting on the notion of, does poverty lead to crime, right? Is that what's causing people to commit crime, right? Because that's one of the talking points. And if you know us here, you've been with us long enough. We love to tackle these talking points because these are the perpetual lies for decades that have been told not only to us individually, but in schools and just talking points that we hear. But yeah, I don't. That's a good question, man. How would you open this up? What's your thoughts on that? And then I'll
So
share
my
after.
thoughts is you have especially the Chinese, you
Hmm.
have the Japanese, you have people from India, okay, who have been the poorest in this country and yet faced probably as much discrimination as the 13% of this country
Hmm.
and yet don't commit nearly a fraction of the high violent crimes that the 13% commits. And I find that very fascinating, despite the fact that in the Malign Neglect, a book written by a liberal, I told you this, Heather McDonald referenced this book, citing that the criminal justice system has been very lenient towards blacks in this country.
Wow.
Has been very lenient. There's been proof, there's been data. Why did this person find that out? Because he was trying to back up some of the Democrats' statements that the criminal justice system was rigged against blacks. So he started studying it,
And came to the
looking
opposite
into it,
conclusion.
and came to the opposite conclusion and still printed it. So
Wow.
he probably had an epiphany. He probably had a aha moment like, what are we saying to people?
Mhm,
Are
mhm.
we giving out misinformation? So he still printed it.
Wow, that's interesting.
He talked about how blacks get lenient sentencings, get less probably get less conviction rates because of the fact they're black. Now, we're not delusional, you and I, right? Now, because they're 13% of the population though, and they commit the highest amount of violent offenses, of course the numbers will reflect that they're going to jail more often than other people.
Exactly.
See how disingenuous these
Yeah.
people are?
So again, we have to really dig on to why. And this is where the conversation, we can have a more honest conversation when we get into the programs, the government side of it, the individual responsibility, the culture. We got to stop pretending that these conversations are just a one fit all kind of thing, right? One size fit all. Oh, it's racism. I already know. Look, it has to be. No. This is why the person who came on my live, she calls it common sense. You hear that? She calls it common sense, which means, oh, 2 + 2 = 4. Yeah, common sense. Yeah, we all know that. So it's almost like there's a consensus that we came to. No, we didn't come to a consensus. We came to a consensus to a false idea. That's not a consensus. The consensus is what the facts should show. Even if it's not consensus, what are the facts? And that's what I want to
And
get into a bit.
and what does data reveal? Stats only reveal something for me and you to look further into.
Exactly.
Stats lead to more stats. Stats lead to more questions.
Hmm.
It's called correlation, not
Exactly.
causation. That's
Exactly.
what stats reveal. If you cannot simply just go and look at stats and say, well, a lot more black people are going to jail than white people, why don't you find out why? Why don't you look at these things first before
Hmm.
you make your what did you say to Kira today in that live? Before you make your conclusions.
Hmm.
Find out why. Go on the journey.
Yeah,
Dig
yeah.
deep a bit
And
more.
think about it. Me giving her the stats, I had it in front of me. But for what? I gave her one of them only, but for what? You didn't even read the study you gave me. So that means you're not invested in what you say you are invested in, right? Is this symptom of the people telling us that we are oppressed a certain way and ignoring the realities of all other responsibilities.
Yeah,
I want
facts.
to show something, and I want to continue this conversation, talk a little more about the welfare system, and get some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Poverty in America. But more than 5 decades, several welfare programs, and $25 trillion later, the welfare system has largely failed the poor. Currently, the United States spends about $1 trillion a year on over 90 different federal, state, and local welfare programs. Yet around 12% of Americans are still considered poor. We are clearly spending a lot of money. So why do we still have such a high poverty rate? The simplest answer is that the government does not count most welfare benefits as income when measuring poverty. That means taxpayers can spend and spend.
I got it. Sorry. Go ahead. Say that again. Sorry.
This is why we need to dig deep on how statistics are taken, right? The government does not account. Look how it doesn't get more disingenuous than this. So if the government is giving me 2,000-3,000 a month, right, and now making, let's say, 1,000 a month, right? So that's 2,000 plus my 1,000, right? Because people on these programs are working a lot of times. They're just not in the threshold that passes them for not being eligible, right? So if I'm making 1,000 in my job and the government is giving me 2,500, you know what my income is to the government?
What is
1,000.
that?
1,000. Only my job counts. What they give me doesn't count, which means that I get counted in
Oh,
the
wow.
poverty line. Do you know why they do that? Because if you were to count the jobs they have and the government programs, a lot of these people would be close to middle class, depending on what we're talking about, right? Because middle
Which
class,
would mean they lose the subsidy that makes them middle class.
and also which would mean the statistics don't look that people are in poverty. They want to show that people are in poverty to give more government programs. You see, you got to manipulate that data as well. So it's twofold, right?
Wow.
So you see, that was eye opening to me. And you can
Wow.
look this up in the statistic. That means they don't account what they give you. So if you're giving me $5,000 a month, by the way, there's families in New York, Macho, that get $4,000 if you have like 3, 4 kids. You get thousands of dollars monthly when you count the benefits of food, when you count the benefits of rent assistance and the checks you're getting. These people,
So let me get anecdotal here, a personal experience, right? My mom was on Section 8 and her apartment was about $2,500.
mhm,
Her rent that she had to pay, her portion she had to pay was like $500.
mhm,
That means everything else was covered, right?
yep.
And she only has to pay $500 a month for a 12-month period, which is what if we calculate it? 5 times 12 is what?
A
Is that
hundred
5?
five.
That's like
Five times what you
5,000,
said?
huh?
You said what?
5 times 12.
That is 50, 65, 500, you said, right?
Come on.
6,500. So, yeah.
Yeah. So about 6,500 a year, and my mother was clocking in at the time, she was clocking in approximately $35,000 a year. So a fraction, see, I don't get that luxury.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't get that luxury. But a person who makes 30,000 or $35,000 less pays $500 for their rent for a two-bedroom apartment in New York City, Manhattan,
Mhm.
okay? Makes now only pays $6,500 a year, pocketing how much now? The entirety of her
You
salary.
see, that's what they don't take into account when we're talking about
Not
this.
paying utilities, not paying gas and electric, not paying any of that stuff. All the other stuff she has to pay for, her cable and all this stuff, basic necessities that she has. She is walking away on this, even at
And
a
she's
low income
getting
bracket.
tax money at the end of the year to a good
Oh yeah,
amount. She has kids
yeah.
and all that because that's the things that my own family love to see. At the end of, oh, I got 3 kids. Who we gonna claim? I've seen scams all over where they claim certain people, and the point is poverty, the way they describe it
So
is very,
incentivized,
very manipulated
and
because now it's how you're picking apart these numbers, right? Because in reality, if you make 30,000 and your expenses are, let's say, 1,000 a month or 500 total with all your bills, phone and everything, you're not living a bad life.
No.
You get what I'm saying? So we have to put stuff in perspective. Let me keep going here. You're going to find this interesting.
But the poverty rate will always seem to remain unchanged. In reality, not even the government can spend $1 trillion a year and have no impact on poverty. Once cash, food, and housing benefits are measured accurately, the poverty rate falls from 12 to 4%. But does this mean the war on poverty has been a success? Not really. In launching the war on poverty, President Johnson declared that he wanted to address the causes, not just the symptoms of poverty. He said he intended to shrink, not increase, dependence on government. His goal was to increase self-sufficiency, the ability of individuals to support their families without reliance on government handouts. And
Oh, you on?
that should
Sorry.
remain
Go
our
ahead.
goal
Say that
today.
again. Sorry.
This is very important to listen to. This is the intention behind the welfare program. So let me keep playing this last bit and then we'll discuss.
Unfortunately, by that very measure, the current welfare state is an absolute bust. What has gone wrong? Well, the main problem is that our welfare system discourages work and it penalizes marriage. Work and marriage clearly raise incomes, but more importantly, both.
So let me break this down, right? In simple terms. The
I have
program,
some questions too, by the way. Go ahead.
the war on poverty, right? Let me break some of this down in single terms and then we'll play another quick clip. The war on poverty, right, which is how the welfare program rolled out. The intention behind it was to have less dependent, this is out of the person who rolled this out's mouth, to have the dependency of the government lessen, right? By first giving them kind of a step up. Then have them measure the success of the program by how many people go out, get a job, buy homes in the future, and are self-sustained. Right? This is out of the person who rolled out the program. Now, according to that standard, it's been a disaster because most people who are on welfare don't get out. Most people who start welfare don't go on and get a good paying job. Right? Why? Because the real destruction, which is what she's getting into, goes into what? What we don't want to talk about. Our own culture, the family in our hoods, the broken families. You see, these are the things that would fix our communities, but we are focused on what the government could do more because, again, the same narrative, they're not giving us enough money, right? So it's
And I have a few questions too. Like, one, let me start here. Did minorities need a leg up? Did we need welfare in this country when they put it out?
That's a good question. In a way, well, all right. So according to how we were, so I know these statistics here. I know in the 20s and 50s, going up to the early 60s, before the welfare program, the wealth gap was tightening. Right, we were getting closer, despite the discrimination, to the actual quote unquote like standard, whether that be white person or like the gap was getting closer. When the welfare program came out, what I do know is that gap widened, right? So I don't know if we needed it. I just know that it was a bust, like she said. It didn't work to help.
So we had social programs since FDR, right?
Mhm.
And Tom Sowell has been arguing that if he would have just allowed the stock market to just do what it does, it crashed. It was a bad crash. People were losing their money out of their accounts. Banks were going bankrupt, literally robbing people blind, which they couldn't pay their rent, and then they had to pitch tents out in the country, right?
Yeah.
Tom Sowell says, as ugly as that looked, if you would allow the market to do what it does, it would have skyrocketed, which it did 6 months after the crash. It skyrocketed to the point of a surplus. But what FDR wanted to do was to make sure that ugliness, how it looked, doesn't ever happen again. That's what Tom Sowell is arguing.
That's interesting. No, I wonder if that's realistic what he wanted. That's just it looked like the government took advantage of a
Yes.
crisis, right?
And
To
this is
kinda get
what
more power.
this is why I love Tom Sowell, because he's minimum government and he stays consistent throughout history. He simply says the more government and the more they feel, they replace with what works with what sounds good.
So, Macho, before you play that, Tom, let me play this quick few seconds here, and then
No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I just
inherently linked to a person's well-being and happiness. For example, marriage is the #1 factor in promoting upward mobility for children. Because welfare is anti-work and anti-marriage, it inherently harms the very people it was supposed.
all right. So the other thing too, though, Savory, welfare is not anti-work, right? Per se, it's not telling you not to work. But why is she coming to this conclusion? I think this is a very important point for a lot of progressives out there. Why are conservatives coming to that conclusion?
Yeah. I like how you framed that in an honest way, so we can talk about it. All right, it's not telling you you can't work, but it's telling you if you do, then sorry, we can't help you.
We can't help you.
So
Yes.
you see, so
Yes.
it's very manipulative, right? So, for example, it's the same thing as it's the same way where they say you don't have to get the vax, but if you do, you can't work it, right? So it's almost the government plays these games here where it's like you only could work hard to this extent. So you actually also, this is my own argument, you incentivize people to actually work and get income without paying taxes. This is why it hurts the government as well. Because if I know I can't make over 40K, but I got to provide for my family and I still want the government programs, I would go out there and get a job that pays all cash or do something for that extra income. I won't just say no to the income to provide for my family. So it creates a kind of black market in itself in the system
Yeah.
where the government collects even less taxes. So this,
And so what you're saying is not only are they under the poverty line getting subsidy, but they're also getting return on taxes as well. So it's like a triple whammy.
exactly. And that's my own
Yeah.
conclusion there with the taxes as well, because I've seen it happen. So another
So
quick part
it
here, and then we'll
causes
change
a
it.
strain. Yeah.
Supposed to help, especially children. Why has this happened? Well, as welfare benefits grew over the years, they increasingly served as a substitute for a working parent. Single mothers were discouraged from marrying the fathers of their children because that reduced their benefits.
Correct.
And as the role of the father was undermined, mothers.
Let me also say this too. The government is not necessarily saying don't get married. The government is saying that if you are married, like you said in the previous one, we can't help you.
Exactly. You see, exactly.
So
You
it's a
said it
strong
perfectly.
arm. It
So
literally
again,
is a strong arm.
it's not illegal to get married, but if you get married, you lose 20K. That's a hard decision to make if you were living a certain lifestyle. So this is why part of it, my mind goes in. I'm like, okay, they might have been good intention, but they know how they can keep people in the program for votes, for power in the district, for all that. It's in your best interest to keep people in these programs and stop the upper mobility. It's
So
that would be a strategy.
let me surmise this a bit, Savory, and I want to hear your feedback. We have two directions in our country. We have the side that takes us upward mobility,
Mhm,
right? Where you can advance yourself, start your business, do this, or even work in corporate, work your way up, become whatever you want to become, project manager, director, executive, whatever. And you can make your money, you can invest in trades, invest in stocks, or start your own business and go that route.
mhm,
But then we have the other side, the downward mobility, where the less you earn, the more incentives you get in terms of
mhm.
subsidy. Is that a fair description of what we have in our economic system today?
Yeah, for sure. And then the less you earn, and you're not incentivized to build skills. You're not incentivized to go in the workforce. You're not incentivized to even help people, right? So before you criticize capitalism, capitalism is an incentive to help people with a product or service. Can it become corrupt by the individual? Of course.
But where
But
does the
you don't allow
exploitation
people to
come
do
from?
that who are on government programs.
Where does exploitation come from? Why are progressives saying that capitalism exploits people?
Look, I've heard people, I think it was on One of Your Lives, say that was it on One of Your Lives that they're being exploited because they have to work two jobs, right? So it's like I don't know. The standard that they have is one of they shouldn't be able to have a 40-hour work week. We should work less. We should have this. So it's more, again, it comes from entitlement.
So that's downward mobility again. So instead
Ex-
of thinking you could work two jobs, they say you have to work two jobs.
Exactly.
You see the language, how we change it? See,
Hmm.
this is the difference between conservatism and liberalism. Is we don't say you have to do this. We say you could. So
Hmm.
real liberalism is conservatism. Liberalism is
Oh yeah, yeah.
cloaked in a
A
lie.
classic liberal is more conservative than anything else, right? We're
Exactly.
just not there. So again, let me. I know it's Brian. You got your video, but we're going.
Others were increasingly left to raise their children on their own. Sadly, that cycle continues today, as many children who grow up on welfare eventually follow in their parents' footsteps when they have families of their own. So what do we do?
Sari,
You see?
I like to have it simplified
Hmm.
because I want people of all thinking levels to be able to say those two guys, I understand. Those two guys, they
Let's do it.
get it. They get it. So how in simple terms we did it, we have the tale of two income strategies in this country, and that is one of upward mobility and downward mobility. The point of the matter is the citizen has the choice in the matter of how they do it. Which side, which direction do you want to go? I don't want to hear what opportunities you're not given because there are a plethora of opportunities that we're all given. Meaning, I could go downward and work less and get the most help from the government, or I can work upward, make the most money, and be more self-sustained and more self-efficient. Correct?
That is correct. That's no better way to put that. And again, this is why we want to emphasize that process of choice, right? And I'm gonna even add another layer of simplicity. I love your challenge here. Let me add another layer of simplicity. You have you can't have it all. You either have the option to fail and succeed, or the option to remain the same, right? So we
Simple.
want the option for you to fail and succeed. It might be scary, but it builds character, it builds who you are, and it pushes you forward. The other option gives you a safety net where you have no freedom and control over your life. Can't get simpler than that.
Let's do this.
Part of a vanishing breed, I might add.
So when you were a Marxist, the notion, explain that, because the Marxism,
Well, but no, you see,
Yeah, so that's
even
complicated.
when I was a Marxist, I had the same intellectual standards,
right?
and that's what eventually led me away from it.
Oh, I see.
In other words, I hadn't done all the research. I hadn't gone around the world
Looking for evidence.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So,
And socialism is a great idea. That does not mean it's a great reality. One of the things that disturbs me tremendously is about this enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders and socialism at a time when people are literally starving in Venezuela, an oil-rich country. You know, and they're breaking.
So I didn't just bring that up just to bring it up. I also wanted to bring it up, Savory, to not only end with him with the sip on facts. And if anybody wants to know where he gets his sources from, please, I recommend you guys read his books.
Hmm.
He talks about this all the time. The reason why I bring him up is because Thomas Sowell should be celebrated and he should be given the medal, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And that's today's sip on facts. This man is the reason why Savory and I think the way we do. He has given us some of the tools to think differently. He's given us and provided us some of the information, the way to go down and
Hmm.
look at economic history, to look at stats, to look at things more than the surface, because there's always something beyond that that can lead you to some logical, and I say this again, logical
Hmm.
consensus. He doesn't blame anything on race. He doesn't blame anything on that some said people group is trying to exploit another set of people group. He takes it step further by step further. We have been plagued, and this is his premise right here. We have been plagued by good intention policy in this country. And
Hmm.
this man, Tom Sowell, has killed it, knocked it out of the park as to how we are.
No
What are your
better way
thoughts?
to end. Yeah, yeah. No better way to end than that. And again, he what he does for many people, Thomas So, is he allows you to go on your own journey of
Yes.
challenging ideas. That's how I describe it. I'm like, oh wow, as soon as I found him years back, it's not that I'm just listening to So everything it said, is that So now introduced me to, wow,
Yep.
there's more than meets the eye. So now you lead me to other thinkers, you lead me to other people who challenge what I and Macho himself were considered to believe as Bible truth, right? There's certain things that were told to us that was considered Bible truth. If you have those thoughts, right? Like the person who came in my live and I told her to explain, she said, I don't need to. It's common sense. No, you need to be able to explain what you believe, because even if 1,000 people believe it, it doesn't make it facts, ladies and gentlemen. Be willing to challenge your own ideas. That will be my encouragement with Thomas So, because that's what he did for me. So that's a great ending. Thank you,
See you
everyone.
guys back on Monday.